Good.
stuff, but we
Can you hear
can't
me okay, Mel?
eat
Yes,
meat,
yeah.
scraps
Great.
or dairy on us, just because it's not good for backyard compost. But
you can do that, you can do everything, because the worms will eat anything.
oh, well, but
So
you
it's
don't.
6:30, so you can start.
Okay, okay.
Just saying.
But it's kind of cool.
Like-
Okay, everybody.
Coffee grounds, I was thinking, I put some of the coffee grounds.
Yeah, there you go.
They're probably on a constant caffeine high. All over in there.
They're like, this is amazing.
All right, let's run it.
Okay, let's go. Thanks for showing up, everybody. We've got a forum and we've got a lot on the agenda, so I think we'll call this meeting to order, and first thing we'll do is take roll. And so maybe Tracy, you could start. We'll go around the table this way, and then we'll get Matthew and Alyssa. So,
Tracy's being an alternate.
Rick Gimmelhein's member.
Logan Dunning, Vice Chair President.
Michael Chisholm, Chair.
Mel England, staff liaison president.
Pat Fitzgerald, member.
Tiana Duncan, member.
Matt.
Matt or Alyssa? There it is.
Matthew Schultz, member present.
Okay. Alyssa's next.
Alyssa Wilbur, ICLEI USA.
Okay, thank you. Okay, approval of minutes. We actually have two sets of minutes. I suppose we could approve them individually or as a pair.
I think it has to be individual.
Individually, okay. On the February 13th meeting, those minutes, hopefully people have looked at them. Any questions, problems, concerns, or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Logan. Motion to approve.
Seconded.
A second from Patrick. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Very good. Okay, and then the second set is February 29th. That was our quick meeting. And again, thank you for everyone who attended. Any questions, problems, concerns on those minutes? Hear any? Hear a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Rick.
Second.
Tiana, second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay, we're rocking and rolling.
We're on time.
Okay, okay, upcoming task, election of chair and vice chair, 5 minutes. Wait,
Or
Why
however
don't you
long. This is just your guys' annual election of chair and vice chair. So same as last year. If you want to nominate someone, you can. If you want to nominate yourself, you totally can. But Mike, up to you. Do you want to start with election for vice chair or chair?
let's start with chair. Make any difference? Does anybody have any thoughts or recommendations on chair?
I nominate Michael Chisholm as chair.
Nominee. Anybody else? I will not take offense if somebody else wants to be chair, trust me.
Mike, I think you've done great this last year and you've got a good thing going. I'd like to see you finish it out, so I'll second that motion.
I got 12 months to go.
You got 12 months.
And then I'm term limited
to
out.
get everything you want to get done.
Look out.
Flamed up, man.
All right, I'm bulletproof now. Okay, thank you, Rick. Do we need a second on that?
Seconded here.
Got a second from Logan.
Is there any other people that want to nominate someone or put their name in the ring?
If not, then I think we should take a vote. All those in favor of Michael Chisholm being chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, how about vice chair? Any nominees?
Hold on, pause on that. Thank you. I'd actually like to remove my name from
Oh, you
the
do?
running. I'd like to see
Oh,
a new voice elevated, whoever that may be,
well, any thoughts?
possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, literally any of the other members here. I just want to create that dialogue.
Good evening, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
We're talking about nominees for vice chair position, and right now we have no names on the table, or volunteers for that matter.
Just brought it up. So good timing.
May I read nominate you, Logan?
I actually just
Wrote down.
recused myself
Okay.
from the role.
I nominate Rick.
I'm, no, thank you, but thank you, I appreciate it. I nominate Tracy.
Y'all, it's not hard.
No,
We just said
I
that.
would literally anybody. Christine, if you would be so willing,
As to,
be vice chair, I would
Oh.
love to nominate you.
I can't at the moment.
Okay, not so, that's why, but I had to ask.
Thank you.
Will somebody please step up? Did Tracy say no
She can't.
She's an alternate.
She's an alternate.
as an alternate? Oh,
This is hilarious.
Kiana, Patrick?
Did you?
We're nominating Patrick.
Oh, okay.
I nominate.
We have a nominee. Great, thank you,
I
Patrick.
wholeheartedly second Patrick.
All right, I'll accept. Do we have a second for Patrick?
Yeah.
Logan? Anybody got a problem with Patrick? No.
Just the nomination.
I just had to ask that. Okay, let's vote. All those in favor of approving Patrick for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. All those opposed, please say no. Congratulations, Patrick. You're now the vice chair. Thank you both for your service. And I commend everyone for being quick about all this. This
Love
is
it.
great. Okay, standing community projects. And I think I'm going to turn this over to the floor. Who's working on community projects that can give us an update?
Well, I can jump in here just for a second, maybe
Okay.
lean on Mel for even more of an update. But that was, the subcommittee, Sustainability Commission Communication Subcommittee. We've got to figure that one out. That was the impetus for the Feb 29 Leap Day meeting, was to get approval for the topics to submit to the city's communications team. We were able to do that successfully. So for those of you that weren't able to make it, I just wanted to report out that we checked that box. We got in time. Sorry for the oversight and for the need to have that meeting. I take responsibility for that. But ultimately, we're successful. Mel, were those submitted to the comms team and recommendations, and they are off and running with it, is what it sounds like. And we got a half page, you say, locked in? for the Definitely
That's what
magazine?
they said was a half page, but for the communications team for the magazine, it depends on how much information they have from the city as a whole of how the end looks like,
Cool.
which I have no say in.
And I was very impressed with their work in the first quarter magazine. So I'm eager to see what they come out with for this next one. So that's where that's at.
Thank you.
Yep, won't have that
A lot of
oversight
work
on
that went
timing.
into that, and I think it's a step forward for lots of reasons. I won't.
Yeah, and I would be remiss not to hat tip the subcommittee of Patrick, Tracy, and Cara.
Thank you.
They all,
Great work.
Mel just starts the meeting and then everything else just. they make
And then
it
I
work.
peace
So
out.
Okay.
That's it.
Were any changes made from the first meeting? Yeah, okay.
So.
Meeting
Mel?
2.0 went just.
Okay. Pretty funny.
And 6 is the magic number for our meeting, so.
Magic
Not
number,
five.
unless one of you drop and then it'll change.
All
Please
right.
don't do that.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments on the community project? Again, I think great job, good accomplishment. Okay, sustainability grant review. Mel, I'd like.
It's me for the next two.
All right.
You guys
Take
don't
it
make
away.
the sound of my voice. Okay, so as I said a few months ago, City Council approved of funding for 2024 for a sustainability grant. Let me put this into. So we had $6,000 to implement this grant. And so we have a city manager fellow, Liz Ramsey, who is absolutely wonderful. She helps me 1 day a week with projects, and this was one of her big deliverables, and I think she absolutely crushed it. So we want to review this grant with you all before it goes live in April, get your feedback, make sure that we're not missing anything. But yeah, hopefully you all read the grant already prior to this. I'm going to go over kind of high level stuff, not like line by line. So the overall details, we have 6 grants up to $1,000 each. And we put that as the max, but say we get a bunch of $500 grants, we can fund more than 6. It's just that max of 6,000 total that we have to work with. This is open to community groups, businesses, individuals, but they just have to be located in the city of Englewood. In order to increase the equity of this grant, the funds are going to be provided up front to reduce any barriers to accessibility for folks. And then we're also going to be using the EnviroScreen tool to target specific climate vulnerable areas to try and get more funding into those areas. So hopefully you all have heard me talk about Colorado EnviroScreen before. I know I linked it in a past email. So this is a GIS map that the state of Colorado put out. This is something that they're funneling a lot of grants through this as part of their criteria. This has helped shape a little bit of policy too. So it's very fitting that we would just use this map to decide what areas in Englewood are the most climate vulnerable. And what it does, essentially, it takes like social and income demographics, overlaying with climate vulnerability to show you the areas that need a little bit more love. So there's a map of Englewood there, but if you all want to do your own deep dive, I highly recommend it. I totally geek out over this map. So application requirements, it's going to be an online application. Folks just have to detail kind of the logistics and the details behind it. We're going to have the application in both English and Spanish. We're working on that translation now. And then they have to submit a budget form telling us specifically how those funds are going to be spent. We want to see either kind of like purchase orders or verification of how they're coming to the number that they're coming to. So for the timeline, we are going to open this up April 8th, which is great, so we can promote it at the Earth Day celebration, which I'll get into that event way later. May 10th is when the applications will close. End of May is when folks will be notified, and then we want all the projects to wrap up December 1st. We feel really confident about this timeline because this is very similar to timelines of the neighborhood improvement grants that Madeline has run for the past 3 years. And it's worked out great, so we just mimicked that. I believe it was Rick a few meetings ago asked about the grant review committee. We're going to keep it all internal, but it's going to consist of city manager's office, i.e. me, Parks, Rec, Library, Golf, Public Works, and communications, i.e. Madeline, just because she's really familiar with not only the neighborhood groups and how the neighborhoods run, but with the grant process. General. And then here, I'm not going to go line by line, but here's the evaluation criteria for everyone to see. You get 35 points for your project overview. This is where you get the 10 extra points for that EnviroScreen if your project takes place in a community with the 90th percentile or higher. 50 points for sustainability, and then 20 points for that project detail. So that is a very high level of the sustainability grant. I would love to hear from you all, kind of reading through it. Was there any kind of red flags you wanted to make before we move forward, or any questions? Yes, Rick.
I geeked a little bit too on this, on the EnviroScreen. And the reason I did is I wanted to see how many of the areas of Englewood were impacted with the 90% or above, and it didn't seem like there were that many. As a matter of fact, some of the 90 spilled over into Sheridan because of the way that they blocked that. It actually took, one of the big 90s was the one that's River Point, that includes River Point. So my concern with that is it might scare people away a little bit if they think they need to be in a 90 area. It doesn't say you have to, but because you get 10 points, it's kind of like, well, maybe I'm not going to qualify. I would almost recommend that you have a sliding scale and maybe make it 10 points for 90, 8 points for 80, something along that line that might soften it a little bit.
The last time I checked, I think we had 3 to maybe 4 areas over 90. But that River Point area, that is actually where all our mobile home communities are. So that's a big one. Okay. That's a big, big one. But yeah,
that's just my, that was my kind of my.
Yeah, I love that idea of a sliding scale.
That suggestion, because when I was reading over it, I was like, do you have to be in that area? I mean, I was kind of skimming, so I appreciate the clarification.
So basically, there could be a competition. Kind of.
A competition I don't think people want to win.
No, I mean, to get the grant money. So
Oh, yes, yes.
even
yeah.
if my project's not in one of those tense areas, I'm still applying relative to what other people are applying, so
Mhm.
it may not make any difference anyway. I've got people in my neighborhood that I'm going to share this with.
Yes, please do.
They've asked
Can a
me.
commission member apply?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we kept all the review committee internal, because I think Rick asked if the commission would be on the review committee, and that would definitely be a conflict of interest. So it's just staff, so anyone on the commission can apply.
What kind of projects do you anticipate applying for this?
Yeah, so we did a list of examples of stuff that people could apply for. I know talking to Dana Lever, actually, she was like, this would be so great for like a low water workshop with residents. Our city management fellow thought it would be really cool if teachers kind of applied and did like air quality education stuff or museum trips talking about sustainability. We're really keeping it pretty wide open. So that people can tailor it to whatever they would like. But I'm very curious to see what people submit.
Can I get clarification on this one? Must be located within the city of Inglewood and cannot be on private property for the primary benefit of the homeowner. Does that mean it can't be on private property? It can't be on private property that for the
So
benefit?
I have a good example for this one because this was something in the neighborhood improvement grant. So we don't want this grant where you're like, I want to beautify my backyard and only you benefit. But for Madeline's neighborhood grant, someone applied and won for a little library. So it's in their front yard. Yeah, it's on their private property, but that benefits the whole community. So something like that would be okay.
Just a little confusing. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can look at how to reword that.
Any other thoughts or insights? Okay, I think good show. Like to see something
Awesome.
come of that. So let's move on.
All right, now we'll go over the greenhouse gas targets. So this is where Alyssa is gonna come in. She's gonna talk about science-based targets in a little bit. But
Okay.
before we kick it off, Alyssa, do you want to introduce yourself, your role, and maybe a little bit about ICLEI?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. I can do that. Hi, everyone. My name's Alyssa Wilbur. I am a program officer at ICLEI USA. That's, as you see on the screen, ICLEI. We're also known as Local Governments for Sustainability. We are a membership-based 501c3, and our members are local governments, regions, tribal nations, and universities. And we support local governments through membership with climate action and provide technical assistance to both sustainability and climate staff, but also to staff across the organization. I lead our membership team, which is a team of 5 that we're broken out into regions. So I am, for all Colorado communities, I am the membership advisor. So Mel and I get to connect a couple of times a year and talk about what you all are working on, and then see how I can provide assistance and who to connect her with on our team that can provide expertise or resource or guidance. And a little bit quickly about myself, that I love representing Colorado communities. I grew up in Castle Rock. I've previously worked for the city of Lakewood for 4 years and the town of Superior outside of Boulder for 2 years. I now live in Montana, which has definitely been a big life adjustment in terms of climate action and what it looks like in Montana versus in Colorado, but that might have been too much, Mel, but that's, yeah, a quick intro. And
No,
I'm happy to answer questions tonight about ICLEI as the organization, as well as the greenhouse gas targets.
And also Alyssa's really great. So they, when the city of Englewood did our greenhouse gas inventory, we use a ClearPath tool, which is through ICLEI. They have seen so many municipalities greenhouse gas targets, and they are just a wealth of knowledge. So if you have anything kind of like broad greenhouse gas related, Alyssa is your point person for that tonight, I would say.
Cool.
But yeah, so going into greenhouse gas targets, so just a little background. The city of Englewood, for our sustainability plan, we've always had in there that we wanted to reduce carbon emissions. We just didn't exactly say when or what point we were trying to reach for. So that's what we're gonna do today. And then for procedural, so these targets are gonna go in front of City Council in May for the strategic plan update. So the Sustainability Commission, hopefully you all feel ready to vote on it tonight, but if you don't, that's totally fine. We can talk about this in April too, but April will be that cutoff date. So to dive kind of in, I thought it would be great to start with what other people are saying about greenhouse gas targets, start from really large and then hone into our community. So the largest I could think of was the IPCC, so that's the International Panel on Climate Change. This is the United Nations body for assessing the science related to climate change. This deciding body is some of the top climate scientists in the world. So when they come out with a recommendation or a report, I think, Alyssa, maybe you agree, anytime they come out with a report, I kind of hold my breath because usually it's not positive. But so for their recommendations, they said we need to reduce global, highlight global there, global carbon emissions by 43% by 2030. We need to be net zero by 2050. So then we're kind of going closer to the US. So the federal government set their own targets, and they said 50 to 52% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, net zero by 2050. The state of Colorado passed in SB 2316 our own greenhouse gas targets. I think it's interesting just very how specific they are by each 5 years it looks like, but essentially they're looking to slash emissions by 50% by 2030 and then 100% by 2050. And then Xcel Energy has a plan for net zero energy by 2050, which that is huge because they are a majority energy provider for the Front Range, if not the state. So then I add this in here, not so we go over each community. It was just for a reference point for you all to see what other communities in the Front Range are doing. So you really see a range. It should be no surprise that the city of Boulder has the most aggressive ones by saying not only will they do net zero, but they're actually going to be net carbon positive by 2040. But we have other ones too, like City of Nederland just doing 50. Actually, that's a big one. City of Nederland doing 50% reduction below 2005 by 2030, and then other ones for the county. And I will say Arapahoe County, they do not have any greenhouse gas emission reductions, which is why that's not up there. Going into the city of Englewood, so we completed this 2 years ago, 2 years ago. And we have dropped our emissions from 2019 to 2021 by 6%, which is wonderful. A lot of that, I would say, and Alyssa, correct me if you think I'm wrong, a lot of that is from Xcel cleaning up the grid. And then another kind of unfortunate caveat there is our transportation went down from 2019 to 2021 because what happened in 2020 was COVID. So that is going to probably go back up the next time we do an inventory. And typically inventories are done every like 3 to 5 years. They're a pretty big data haul to do. And largely it's a waiting game, honestly, from other entities to get you the data that they need. So we'll figure out our next emissions around then. Alyssa, do you think that's about right for the emission reduction for those two big ones?
Yeah, I think that's important to note that it was the 2 years that bookend 2020. So we saw, for a lot of communities, we saw a big dip for 2020 specifically because of transportation. And then a lot of communities, a big rise the year after that because everyone moved around and moved to different places and everyone's emissions changed drastically after that. So.
So I'm actually going to hand it over to Alyssa to talk about science-based targets. So if you looked at our website for the greenhouse gas inventory, we don't have targets set because City Council hasn't seen them, but we did put on there what Englewood's science-based target is, and that's because IGLE gave us this target, which is why we felt comfortable putting it up there. So Alyssa, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very text-heavy slide, and I'm basically going to say everything that this slide says. But as Mel alluded to, so the IPCC is kind of the global governing body made up of hundreds of scientists that come out with reports every couple of years that tell us how close on track we are to meeting our climate goals and what needs to be done if we're way off track. So the one from 2010 was the one that set that 45% reduction by 2030. And then they came out with a more recent report that developed these science-based targets. And this was, again, advising with hundreds of global climate scientists, policymakers. It was a very big process. And so science-based targets it's a shorter target. So it's a very measurable, actionable, and time-bound climate target looking at 2030 as the end goal, with any year between 2018 and 2022 as your baseline. And it's really aligned with keeping the Earth's limit of climate increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is in line with the IPCC's recommendations and what we're trying to achieve globally. So that's really, I'll restate that. That's to hold global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius by mid-century. So not by 2030, but by our mid-century to keep it under that 1.5 degrees Celsius. Science-based targets consider equity. They consider our overall carbon budget, and they also consider a fair share, which is saying that economies and countries that have a higher GDP, higher capacities to implement climate action and have a larger responsibility for the overall global emissions profile should be the ones that should be reducing more. So no surprise there, all of the US, every community in the US has a science-based target that is higher than around 55%. They range between 55 and 65%, and that's really dependent on factors such as the population growth in those areas. That's the biggest one that determines where it falls, and a couple of other factors as well. We do have a white paper that I could give to you, Mel, that like really dives into them and also dives into the very realistic approaches and strategies that local governments can be advancing and advocating for to reach science-based targets. So we have a white paper saying that we think local governments can do this. They can't do it alone. They have to do it in collaboration with their utilities, their state offices of climate and energy, their departments of transportation. It's not like this is your target to achieve alone. And I think a lot of the more progressive climate states are places that recognize that and are doing a lot of great things to support that. So ICLEI does recommend that all communities, when considering adopting a new greenhouse gas emissions target, they adopt a science-based target. And that's really, again, to build both internal support, but then that external support. So showing your utility, showing your state energy office that these communities across the region are adopting these ambitious targets. So we better get on board with helping them accomplish them. I think that, they boost local confidence in local climate action to see that either your community is the one setting the most ambitious target, or is at least aligning with communities around it. And then I think, they really spur innovation and collaboration. We can't achieve these targets without new advancements in technologies and local governments really taking the leap in terms of like pilot projects and doing things that can be really innovative that we haven't seen before. So I think that's my summary. I'm happy to answer questions. And then we do have Englewood science-based target up there that, as Mal said, we calculated a couple of years ago.
Thanks, Alyssa. And then before I open it up to questions, I'll just go over what the city staff is proposing. And before I say it, just know that a lot of times I have to take off my environmental activist hat and put on a government hat of what will a city council really approve when they look at. For our city council, I would say we're pretty like 50-50 on wanting to do aggressive, or not even aggressive, just wanting to do kind of climate action. And that's why when I was talking to Alyssa about it, we said it's such an importance to do that science-based target, but because 60% is higher than what you'll see in the Front Range, how can we do it that it's palpable to this current city council? So we came up with by 2030, a 50% reduction over 2019, and 2050 and 90% over 2019. But then we added in there this stretch goal for 2030 of getting 60% over 2019. Something that I think City Council will like to see, because I think they like seeing what other Front Range communities are doing, so they don't feel like they're the first ones. This is the same target outside of the stretch goal as Broomfield and North Glen, and North Glen out of the Front Range is actually the most similar in population to the city of Englewood, which I think is a really great selling point. So I'll stop there and see if anyone has questions, feedback, edits for me or for Alyssa.
I have a clarifying question that's probably going back to like step one here, but we're talking about the city's greenhouse gas emissions. It's not including like private energy usage from residents within the city limits.
Yeah, I'm sorry, so this is community-wide.
It is community-wide.
Yeah,
So it includes
community-wide.
residents, energy usage.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Mhm.
Got it.
And if this is helpful, this is a breakdown of, which I can try and make that bigger.
Matthew, other question?
Matthew, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, hi. You said that we do our audits every 4 years, and so we don't really have a new audit since COVID. I was wondering if other comparable cities to ours have done an audit since COVID, and if they saw levels return back to 2019 levels for their city. I'm just curious how much of those gains are actually realized, or if we think we're essentially going to be at 2019 levels or above again.
For transportation?
No, the slide you showed that showed greenhouse gas. Just a couple slides back, you had shown a decrease from 2019 to 2021, and you said that we would do another audit in 4 years.
Yes, so this one?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Have other cities done an audit sooner since COVID? And did we see levels go back to 2019 levels in those cities, or are most cities on the same freedom?
Alyssa, do you want to take that one since you've seen a lot of other communities' greenhouse gas reports?
Yeah. I would say it's dependent on the community and what happened in that community during COVID. So a lot of the communities that I work with on the Western Slope, their emissions have they decreased like pretty largely during COVID, and they're now way above their pre-COVID levels because so many people moved into those communities. And so that's one case that we're seeing. I think for our metropolitan areas, we're seeing reductions from pre-COVID numbers, but we definitely are seeing most emissions profiles are increased, like they're higher than they were in 2020. I don't think like 2020 set a new standard or business as usual when it comes to transportation and those types of things.
I will say though, for transportation, it's either 2028 or 2030. Colorado passed a bill where car dealerships, 80% of their cars have to be electric by that point. So if there's ever a state that can slash emissions, Colorado, I feel like is in a pretty good position to do that. I think Polis is pretty aggressive on that.
I guess I'll bring up another point. I hate to be pessimistic here, but I guess it's a larger question, maybe to Alyssa. Is setting a overachieving target of 50% in the next 6 years, is there any negative ramifications to, let's say we come up, like I think even an achievement would be getting to like 20% reduction in this 10-year time span, that'd be awesome. Does it look bad to only get 20% when we set a goal of 50%? We had like a society altering event happen between 2019 and 2021, and we had 6% decrease. So do we really think 50% is feasible by 2030?
I can answer that a little bit. So a lot of emissions are coming from power. Xcel Energy already said that they're gonna slash it by 80% by 2030. And they're pretty aggressive on it. So I just think with what Xcel is doing and what the state is doing around EVs, I think it would be doable just because of those big industries. But Alyssa, I don't know if you agree or disagree.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I just realized, Mel, you and I were supposed to do some modeling and we didn't before this call. So I think that would be helpful for this group to see what we call a business as usual case, is looking at your emissions between now and 2030. And if the city did nothing, but we applied Xcel's clean energy goal, it would actually show the emissions that would be reduced just from that alone. And I feel like seeing that oftentimes can be very convincing for elected officials. I used to work in local government, so I used to wear the hat that Mel wears, where she's like recognizing who is on your city council and where they lean in terms of supporting climate work. But at ICLEI and in the work that I do now, we strongly advocate for higher emissions targets, because this is the critical time to act, and cities are on the front lines of responding to the climate crisis. And I think in that regard can also be like the model entities for how we should be responding to it now to mitigate it in the future. The analysis that we've done, the top 4 areas to focus on to achieve these drastic science-based targets, or even the reduction of 50%. The number 1 is cleaning the electric grid, which Mel's already alluded to is happening. Closure of coal plants in the United States, which is quite a bit out of a local government's what a local government's able to do, but you can still lobby for things like that. I don't know if you're CC4CA members, but that's one way to get really involved in that type of action. The third is transportation, so vehicle mile reduction coupled with electric vehicle adoption. And then the fourth is first building efficiency and then building electrification. So I can't give you like a straight answer of which one is better. We're at a dire state across the globe in terms of like the climate crisis and where we could potentially be in 2030 if we don't act aggressively on climate change. And so I'm always an advocate for adopt a science-based target. When I worked at the town of Superior, you saw in Mel's summary, they adopted their science-based target of 60%. By 2030, I'm not quite sure where they're at. I should probably check in on that, but it is so critical that we act right now. And so I think I don't think it's effective to set a lower goal, come back in a couple years and say, okay, we're getting close, let's actually change it. I think that looks worse rather than just setting an ambitious goal and asking the community to help you make that happen.
2 other things I'll just add that will help reduce emissions is 1, the state of Colorado passed the extended producer responsibility program in 2022 that's going to give recycling to all residents, and it's going to drastically try to increase our waste diversion, which that can be a really big part of emissions there, and that's done through the state. And then the city of Englewood also adopted 2021 building electrification codes last year, 2 years ago, and that reduces new buildings energy use by 9% for each new one. So there's definitely a lot of work that the city can do, but there's already been some good strides there, but also through the state.
I have a question or a thought. It appears to me that these standards are coming from the outside in, and I think probably everybody in this room is going to say, let's set targets and let's go big. I'm hung up or confused or concerned about what is Englewood going to do to move the dial? The state's doing things, the feds are doing things, Excel's doing things. And Alyssa, I don't know if other communities address this, but my question is, I don't care, pick a target, 50, 60, 70, pick it, because that's a wish. Question in my mind is, by what method is Englewood going to move towards that target? And Mel, you just addressed a couple things that Englewood is doing. That's good. But my concern is, to the city of Englewood, what are we going to do?
So I can answer that too. So
Right.
in the strategic plan, when you have metrics and projects in there, a good example of this is for the energy performance contract that we're under right now. They ask us what's in city plans that we can help you meet. So if something like this would be in there of like, we're looking to slash reductions by this much, it really helps focus projects better if you actually have something that contractors can help you look for.
Okay.
Then also it helps whenever we go to city council and say pitch a program or pitch something going on, we always have to say how it relates to the strategic plan.
Okay.
So then we would say this project helps reduce by X amount, which helps us with the target that we set.
Okay. I just hope we can emphasize that, because targets are targets, they're great, but by what method? And if Englewood or Mel England or somebody could say, well, here's the methodology we're going to embrace. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to spend money here, we're going to stop spending money. You know, and to me, that's the meat on the bones that I mean, speaking for myself, let's approve a target. Let's move the dial, you know.
I'll just chime in just to add, obviously Mel knows what's going on specifically in your community, but a couple of things I could kind of recommend. I totally understand what you're saying. Like, this feels, we're saying, don't worry, Excel's doing this, and don't worry, the state's doing this. But those last 2 points I talked about, the transportation and the buildings, that is where Englewood, you know, building codes, which Mel talked about, land use, as well as operationally, something called priority-based budgeting is a really big tool that local governments are not using enough right now. It's a method where you actually come in and assess the existing budget and find areas where the budget is being underutilized, where there's unnecessary spending, and you can actually reallocate. So there's a whole methodology. There's a ton of different tools that help with priority-based budgeting. You can actually reallocate budgeting to whatever that priority is. So if you were serious about adopting a very stringent target, I'd say one of the first things you could do in you know, I don't know where you are in your budget cycle this year, but maybe next year is do a priority-based budgeting exercise and see what sort of funds could be reallocated specifically to climate action. So those are just some other resources. And I think this white paper that I'll share with you also has a lot of great insight into specifically what the local government can do in terms of codes, regulations, incentives, and all of those other buzzwords for climate action.
Right, yeah.
Pardon me. It sounds to me like most of what I'm hearing from you, Alyssa, and from Mel are things that are projecting forward on changing regulations, putting in place things for builders and things like this, which I think is absolutely wonderful. And I'm going to go back to the comment that was made earlier, is there going to be a need to have existing businesses change their models? Is there ways that need to be done to actually move the needle by creating new or stricter emission controls on, you know, and I say businesses because I look at the big peak there of businesses which seem to be a big piece of the emission issues. You know, you can't, yes, you can project and say, okay, in 5 years, we're going to be in a better place because these rules are in place. But is that going to be enough to really move that needle?
Yeah, I love that comment. I have 2 things on there. So for the commercial sector that you saw, municipality is wrapped up in commercial. And we have a really high commercial. One, we have a healthy business community, but we have a wastewater treatment plant and a water utility. That's pretty big for a community to have. And that's a lot of our emissions, or not a lot, a big chunk of our emissions than that. I also want to say we noticed that the commercial sector is the biggest, which is why we're launching a green business program in April. And that really will go hand, one of the reasons we're doing that is because that business sector, that commercial sector is so big. So we're pairing that city funding to help the city as a whole get our emissions down.
For the commercial sector, we also have the building performance standards coming into play, right? Underway now, and it wouldn't have been reflected in the 2019 or 2021, and those are something like 7% savings by 2026 and 20% by 2030. So, and that's for buildings 50,000 square feet and up, which do use the most energy per square foot. So, I mean, total. So we'll see some come down there, but that's another example of a state policy that should kind of help us along without us actively doing anything. So maybe we could look at how to build on that or expand on it, or help the affected commercial businesses meet their targets sooner or stronger.
That's a great point. And I've heard people just in the local government field just assuming that over time that 50,000 is going to go lower so that they can get more and more buildings in there, but that's all just hearsay. But yeah, the 50,000 square feet will be a big one.
And I'll say your neighbors in Lakewood are currently working on their own building performance standards, which I think capture anything between 10,000 and 50,000 square feet. So Mel, if you ever want to connect with them about what they're going through to try to capture more businesses under the benchmarking, I would reach out to them.
Yeah, I'm going to bug Jeff Long about that one.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
I feel like it would be a while until the state would move down the 50,000 to say 20,000 or 25, because they can't really look at it in a rulemaking till 2029, which is almost when we're supposed to have our target hit. So I think that that's where it is a role for local governments to expand the state policy and maybe tackle those smaller buildings on our own. And I was hearing that that could be a component of the large DRCOG grant application that they're submitting soon to try to get some federal grant money for local policies and some sort of policy for helping local governments on those, I guess you call them medium-sized buildings, could be a component of that. So we could keep our eyes on that and see if DRCOG gets the grant, fingers crossed, then we could see if we could be a part of those conversations. I had a comment back to the targets. I guess our bigger question is can we meet the targets? But your original question was what should the targets be, right? And I think that the community-wide targets that you proposed, they look reasonable. I also like the science-based targets because I like the science backing of it and the data backing of it. That seems very defensible and necessary. So I could be okay either way, but I would be nervous about presenting the community-wide targets and then have those weakened further. And so I would kind of prefer the science-based targets and let City Council weaken them from there instead of the community-wide targets and then let City Council weaken them even further. But maybe an alternative could be presenting them with 3 different options. The lower one would be the community-wide one. The middle would be the science-based one, a more aggressive one, and see if that could help convince them to go towards the middle instead of weakening the lower one. But having said that, I would be okay with the community-wide targets if that's what we go with. I wouldn't be heartbroken about those.
And when you say the 3-tier with the more aggressive one, are you thinking of like 100% by 2050 or?
I guess it would be something proportionally higher than the science-based target.
Got it. But for including
So
both 2030 and
65
2050 in there, right? Or are you saying just doing?
I was just looking at 2030, but adjusting 2050 as well.
Can you go back to that slide on?
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
screen?
To this one?
And then the science one is right above that. But I don't know if you can show both on your screen at the same time.
Yeah, so I just rounded 59.8 to 60.
Is the science-based one is 100% by 2050? It just doesn't say that on the previous slide.
From the science-based one that I got from ICLEI, it only mentioned 2030. Alyssa, is 2050 included in that, or is it mainly focused for 2030?
Yeah, their science-based targets are only for 2030, with everyone having the goal of net zero by 2050.
Something that Alyssa had brought up when we met a little bit ago too, was kind of these key moments are to slash as much of our emissions as possible by 2030. That's a little bit kind of like that tipping point. And then 2050, I think, Alyssa, tell me if I'm butchering what you're saying, but then kind of after 2030, if we get to here, everything kind of hopefully falls into place after that. Alyssa, is that right?
Yeah, I think we'll still have a big uphill battle between 2030 and
Yeah,
2050 and a lot of
place,
work to do. It's just in order to, the science shows in order to keep below the 1.5 degree in mid-century, we have to achieve these targets by 2030, or else it is kind of, we hear the word tipping point a lot, and we've heard it like 2018 is a tipping point. We kept hearing it, but they aren't even using the term tipping point anymore. They're just saying there's no going back if we don't make these reductions by 2030.
Just think that each summer will be the coolest summer of your life.
So depressing.
Dark, but.
So, where do we go from here, or what would you suggest we do?
Yeah, so these are the targets that we're gonna be going to city council with. You
What's on
all,
the screen?
the ones on the screen, yeah, the 50, the stretch goal, and the 2051. If you all agree with them, you can vote on them, and then essentially we just kind of have that as a note when we go, the Sustainability Commission vetted these, they agree with these, makes it more powerful. If you all don't agree with it, that's totally fine, you don't have to. Or if you want more time on it, then that's fine too, and we can bring this back in April.
What's the group think?
I really liked Christine's perspective of presenting three. Is three too many options, in your opinion?
Yeah, for the city council, I say yes. I think sometimes having like maybe two is a good one. But that's just my opinion of going in front of city council before.
I think it makes sense to just go with the science-based target and say like, this was proven, this was provided by ICLEI, it's science-based, this will match IPCC, you have all this backing behind it, and then let them, argue over feasibility and decrease it if they want to.
So doing, instead of a stretch goal, doing 2030, 60% and 2050, 90%? Is that what I'm hearing?
Or
I just
align it
agree
with
with 90%.
ICLEI, just say 60, science-based target by 2030, net zero by 2050, period.
Yeah, because if we have, the federal target is 100%, the state target is 100%. I don't see why we would agree with going with only 90% as a target for us.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see the modeling. I mean, just for my own purposes, I don't know if that's something Mel and Alyssa could work on and circulate, but.
Alyssa, do you have that?
Your specific modeling?
Yeah, with like the Excel and everything in there? If
No,
not,
but you and I could work on that to make sure that we have that prepared for your council. And then I was also thinking the the white paper I alluded to that has the science of how local governments can achieve these targets would be useful for you to add as an appendix to your, when you make your recommendation to council.
That'd be great. I think there is a shock factor whenever you see some of these percentages and timelines for people who are not necessarily in these conversations like we are, or constantly thinking about these things. So I would think that the modeling presented to council would be very helpful.
Can I recommend that since we have another month, could you have the modeling ready for us for the next meeting maybe? And that way we could kind of process through that ourselves a little bit too. And that would help me, I know.
Then we could, is this something we need to vote on, or do we just give a thumbs up, general consensus, or what would you prefer?
So if you all agreed with the community, the staff proposed one up there, you could vote on it as is. If you like what Tiana and Patrick had, you can vote on that. And essentially that just, whatever you all vote on, will get added to the notes, the city council memo when this comes to city council in May. Or if you all want to say, we don't want to have an opinion on it, you don't have to have an opinion on it. But it's really up to you. You guys don't have your hands tied in any one way or another. And you guys do have April too. If you want to just have this presentation, then I can bring back that projection. You can vote on it then if you want to, whatever the commission would like.
Mel, are you the one presenting this to council? Or will you
So
be present for
Tim-
the conversation?
Yeah, I'll be present. Tim Dodd is the one that always presents any of the updates for it. So this will be one of many updates, but I'll be there to quote unquote defend it if they have any questions.
So what's the feeling of this group? Do we want to make a decision, vote tonight, or do we want to give it another month? Maybe look at the modeling and bring this conversation back up next month?
Look at the modeling.
Modeling?
Cool.
Modeling?
Definitely do.
Yeah, and then vote next month.
I think we're generally in favor. I think we're probably
I like it.
just fine tuning how we're in favor.
And now you all have all the background information done, so you can just look at a model.
That might be
It'll
interesting.
Well, I think it backs up our position.
Yeah.
Of we were exhaustive.
Right. We thought about it. And we spent some time.
I know I'd like to see it, but I do agree with.
Yeah.
The science-based
Yeah.
targets personally.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see the modeling so that we can check that box as a commission. But I think we all need to agree on that, or what's the move?
Is everybody,
There can be a general consensus.
Okay.
Does anyone disagree with?
Matthew, you
Next
okay
one.
with looking at the modeling before we vote on
Yeah.
anything? Okay.
Yeah, I am.
And Shelley, you okay?
Yeah.
Great. All right, so more homework for
More.
the next meeting, but it's good
Just
stuff.
a little homework.
Good
We'll
stuff.
send it to you early. Any questions for Alyssa before we let her have the rest of her night back?
Thankful for listening.
Thank you.
Alyssa.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was nice to see you all. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Alyssa.
Bye.
Okay.
I think that was a good discussion.
That was good.
Yeah.
Good work. Mel, why don't you do the city updates for us?
Okay, city updates. We have a lot because April, as you all know, is Earth Day and Earth Month for me. So we have a lot of events gearing up. There will be a social media post and everything, an email on this. We're solidifying it next week. But just so you all know, on April 3rd, we're having a Colorado scaping chat. Dana Liebert is actually going to be running that. We're having this.
What is that? Sorry.
Oh, no, you're totally good. So Dana Liebert is gonna come and present, do a open for the public talk on Colorado scaping, which is essentially zero scaping. So we'll have that. As you all know, the grant launches April 8th. We're gonna have Compost Colorado here on Thursday, April 11th. To talk about composting 101, answer anyone's questions. These two events, by the way, are taking place at the Civic Center in the community room downstairs. We're gonna have an electric vehicle ride and drive on Earth Day during the lunch hour from 11 to 2, I wanna say. So if you all have nothing going on, come on over.
Was that a successful event last year, Mel? I feel like I drove by and saw you or something that day.
Or,
I
oh
don't-
yeah, we
was
did
it-
like
was it right down
three
here?
was- We did like 3 different EV events last
Yeah.
year. We did one at Broken Tea, we did an employee one over here.
It was up at Nixon's, I think.
Yes, yeah, and that was for the EV action plan.
Cool, that's
Yeah.
what that was.
This one will actually, you can actually like get in and drive them. I think like Rivians are gonna be there, but also like
Oh,
financially feasible cars too.
I want a Tesla.
you what?
I want a Tesla. Can we get a Tesla?
Yeah.
We always have Teslas there. I can almost
I'm a
guarantee,
Plaid.
That's
I want a Plaid.
low hanging
I
fruit.
can almost guarantee we'll have a Tesla there. But yeah, that should be really fun. So if you all have a lunch break available, come on over. And if you all have any questions about EVs, they're there to answer that too, like taxes, charging. Drive Electric Colorado is really amazing. So we're gonna have that. Internally, we have employee park cleanup on the 16th. And then on Saturday, we have the Earth Day celebration. So in the morning, it's that river cleanup hosted by South Platte Renew. And then the second year, we have our Earth Day celebration. Last year, it was at Grow and Gather. We wanted to make it bigger this year, so it's going to be at the Civic Center in that piazza out front, right across from Nixon's. Sunita's Brewing is going to be there. Come have a beer. We're going to have live music. And I think the Humane Society is going to bring some puppies. So I feel like there's no reason not to go. And then our last one to close out the month is a rain barrel workshop. That's going to be on Tuesday, April 30th.
Cool.
Yeah, so if you're ever like, Mel's really slow to get back to me in April, now you know why. And then finally, I was going to ask you all, does the Sustainability Commission want to table at the Earth Day celebration on the 27th?
What would we be providing? I mean, could we insist
So
on-
whatever you all want, you can get a table and then talk to residents. You can promote the group. I know that was a big reason that you all wanted to do magazine stuff, was to get the word out about the group. So I feel like this is like the best event to do that at, but you all can really make it your own. And also there's no obligation if folks don't want to do it. I just wanted to put it on the table.
I mean, could it be an opportunity to just provide like residents with like, here are some ways that, simple things that you can do at home to be more sustainable?
Yeah,
Like
if you all want to.
composting, like doing Ridwell, I mean, just educating about just easy things that they can do at home.
I'll also say we will have a City of Englewood sustainability table. So if folks just wanted to like come and sit at that table as part of the Sustainability Commission, if the commission didn't want to have like a full table, I think that would be
Oh.
fine.
Well, that seems duplicative almost to have our own too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a great idea. Because that way, we wouldn't be under pressure. I've got to sit at a table for 4 hours. If the table was already there, there are already people there, we could tag team, or we could say Mike's going to be there for 45 minutes here. Rick's going to come. I'm just thinking of maximizing the table and having things to talk about, frankly. Handouts or what have you. I think we could mush them together.
What day is that? Sorry, is it right in front of me?
It's the 27th.
Thank you. Oh, yep, it is right in front of me.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Most people do Earth Day the Saturday before, because the Earth Day is on the 22nd, but that's 420. So every local government has pushed it to the 27th as a fun fact.
Wise.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of that.
For another reason. Very, very green.
Where like people would be moving really slow.
So where's the talk?
I'll be running around with my head cut off and being at that table. Or maybe at the Humane Society pen, I can't tell.
Find you at the puppies.
Could we maybe hone this for next meeting? In other words, saying,
Yeah,
oh yeah, we'll show up, but maybe we could say specifically, this is what we want to
yeah.
offer. This is
Yeah.
what we want to talk about.
I would say noodle on it until next meeting, but now that the
Yeah.
opportunity's out there for y'all.
Okay. I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's not too overwhelming for any of us to knock a whole day out of our schedule, right?
It's only 3 hours.
Yeah.
Is that all?
That's all.
That's not bad.
all.
Okay.
Any questions or comments on the event?
Can you remind me, are local businesses invited to have a table? Do they pay for that? Nonprofits?
Absolutely.
How that
So
works?
we made the vendor fee extremely cheap. It's $25. That's the cheapest out of any event. Just because it's our second year doing it and our first year in the Civic Center. So yeah, only $25 if they want to come. And we have a vendor form online already, and I can send that in a follow-up email too, if that would be helpful.
And are nonprofits also 25?
Yes, I believe. I have to ask our event supervisor on that. I believe yes, though.
Do you know what flyers and stuff you're gonna have as part of the sustainability table? Like, do you have a plan for that anyways?
Not yet. If you have suggestions, let me know. I'm happy to put whatever out there.
Could we proactively invite to have a table grid?
Alternative?
Yes, grid
Yes,
alternatives. and
yeah, they
energy
have
out-
been outreach to already.
And Energy Outreach Colorado or Arapahoe County Weatherization.
So the
to have their
weatherization program already has their application and they're going.
Great.
Which is great.
Good.
So at worst case, if Grid can't come, they work kind of hand in hand
Uh-huh.
with them for that free solar.
Great,
So I'll make sure Regina, the administrator over there, has some stuff on it.
great.
Well
Any
done.
other
I think
questions?
that something will come together.
And didn't it snow last year?
It did, but I think, kind of to do the macabre comment I had earlier, I think it'll be warmer this year. Okay, so my final city updates. So the city of Englewood, all of our buildings is, we're gonna launch composting internally on April 1st, which is a big win. I wanted to give an update on our electric vehicle charging situation. We passed an electric vehicle action plan in 2023. Christine was actually on that planning committee. We originally set a goal of having 5 public chargers by the end of 2024. Xcel Energy is a big part of the funding for the infrastructure, and that is on hold because they have to go to the Public Utility Commission, get more funding. So we're now looking at a 2025 timeline, but I will say our Director of Public Works and everyone internally is very committed to getting these chargers. So they're delayed, but they are not forgotten. The other one, hopefully you all saw, the energy efficiency utility bill insert went out, I was told this month, and that'll guide folks to the website and also give more information on those energy efficiency programs that are out. And the last thing is just to let you all know the past and upcoming city council sustainability related things. So on February 19th, they had the second reading of the waste characterization study and it passed. We've already been in kickoff meetings for it, which is great. On March 4th, we had the energy performance contract project update where we also were going to get direction from city council on if they wanted renewable energy projects scoped in kind of that final audit, and we got the direction of yes, which that was a huge win. So renewable energy projects will be pitched to them. On March 18th, we're going to get city council just to approve an intergovernmental agreement to continue essentially our air monitoring program. So nothing too big there. And then on April 1st, I'm going to city council to do a study session on the low income energy efficiency outreach plan, which you all helped with. And I just want to say kudos to you all because the comments that you all made it so much better and so much stronger. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate it. But yeah, those are the updates from the city. Any questions or comments there?
What about the study session that Dana had requested for?
I'm gonna pull that up for public comment, that email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay to move on? All right, let's move on. April meeting topics, ideas. We had a couple ideas. One, we want to see the methodology, the modeling, and probably give you a firm answer, approval of some kind or another that we all agree on.
Evan also is coming in April with a final tree protection ordinance he's been working on. I'm joining him this Thursday to go to the Parks and Commission. They're gonna get eyes on it and make comments, and then it'll come to you all in April for final ones before it goes to city council.
And wasn't Cara going to talk about Coloradoscaping and plants?
Yeah, so our next meeting is gonna be a lot about native plants, which is awesome. So we finished one of the projects, it was actually, one of the projects Dana recommended that got into the sustainability plan was to create a turf map and then create a target for conversion of the specific turf areas to native. We have that completed. So Adrian Torres, the open space manager, is coming next meeting. We're gonna present on the map and present on the parks
Great,
target for conversion.
great.
And so I talked to Cara because she originally wanted this meeting to be about native plants. I was like, are you okay if we move it? Because it's just so perfect for the next one. And she said, absolutely. So we're gonna talk about that. And then we're gonna talk about more of the stuff that she had listed in her kind of part 2 of the tree protection ordinance, which for folks who weren't here when that went out, I will send it as, and also as a refresher of what was in there.
That'll be a chunk of time probably.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Any other thoughts for the April meeting that you all want to make sure we're paying attention to?
It's a full agenda.
I was gonna say, that's fun.
Okay, before we conclude, we don't have any community people.
So we do have the public comment from
Yeah,
Dana, which
that's
I
what I was
want
gonna
to
say. Anybody out there?
share.
In TV land.
In TV land, I like that.
Tracy, have you started the ambassador program officially? How's it going generally?
Well, I
Beginning
mean, I was
stages?
the first one to canvas with them, and it's, like I said, I mean, we walked around for about an hour, and everybody seemed receptive. I just need to follow up with some people,
Sure.
but I got some people to sign up right on the spot.
That's great.
And that was just in an hour. I mean, we got quite a few. So yes. So if you don't compost, I have a flyer for you. It's very easy to sign up. Put my name in as a reference. I'm gonna have a drop-off point at my house. There's also Grow and Gather and another place. So anyway, as a little plug.
Nice.
I wanted that. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, so this is an email from Dana. I thought we could put this as the public comment.
Okay.
So she said, I'm writing as a follow-up to the city council meeting on March 4th, in which residents advocated for ecologically sustainable landscape practices to be at the heart of Englewood Park's plan for GeoBond funding. Specifically, I'm asking the Sustainability Commission to make recommendations to council based on residents' requests for 1, city council to create a special study session on turf conversion and native plants. 2, for city council and Englewood Parks to commit resources to education and retraining to learn best practices from cities that have been doing trails on turf conversion methods, habitat-friendly maintenance best practices, land management best practices to maximize the carbon sequestration and flood mitigation potential of soil, and then another about available grants for open space restoration projects. I have an extensive list of grants I have offered. And then 3, to create metrics by conducting an inventory of parks maintained yet unused turf and strategic plan for transitioning this unused turf to native pollinator meadows, which is what I said Adrian will present on next meeting. She said Christina Underhill's presentation for GeoBond funding was promising and that it included turf conversion and native plants. However, without a commitment to education, the GeoBond plan does not reflect an understanding of the knowledge gap between conventional landscaping and ecologically restorative landscaping methods. And without a commitment to metrics, it does not reflect a commitment to systemic change. And then her last sentence, sorry, I hope that the Sustainability Commission will use their influence to advocate for City Council to provide the necessary foundation for Englewood to put its open space to use to solve ecological problems and make our city a healthier place to live.
Thank you, Dana.
Feedback, thoughts on Dana's suggestion?
Can I add one comment that I actually got from Parks because I
Okay.
just wanted them to get an eye on it. And Christina Underhill said that at the March 4th meeting, because there was a time constraint, she just wasn't able to say everything around native plants, but she said we discussed a couple ideas after the March 4th meeting. 1, a focus group with the people and pollinators participants where they can help us plan the native areas in the parks. And then 2, a presentation to the Sustainability Commission related to the bond and a plan to convert turf to native. So that's my final comments.
Let me just blurt out an idea. It's getting late, so in the interest of time. I agree with Dana that I think this group should make a statement of some kind. We've supported pollinator gardens, and that's all good, but I think what she's asking for is some type of position statement or recommendation. We're going to be talking about native plants in April, and I'm wondering, she puts a lot in the letter. I'm wondering, can we pick up on that and put something forward to council as a recommendation, which I don't think council has a problem with, but I like the idea of what Dan is suggesting, which is condense it. I'm saying condense it and just put it forward to say to city council, this is good stuff. We need to keep the ball moving down the road. And if you want more detail, you could read the attachment, but that letter says a lot right there. But I don't think there's any problem with us nudging city council along and reminding them. Some of us were at the city council meeting last week and spoke in support of Coloradoscaping. I was there and spoke. I didn't speak as a member of this commission. I just spoke as a citizen. So I think there's some momentum growing. I think it's great. I just want to fan the flames. And I think if this group said, this is good, keep it up, I think that would have an impact. I think it would help the effort. So again, can we incorporate that into maybe the agenda discussion of next week? And then,
Michael, should we have a draft statement before the meeting, or is that something we want to put together? In
that's a
terms
good
of
idea.
efficiency, I would caution against trying to draft something mid-meeting.
Yes.
I just don't know who would want to carry that ball ahead of the April meeting, or if that can come.
I will volunteer.
Mel's not busy in April,
Yeah.
clearly. And if you would like to, that'd
I
be.
will.
I'm just sitting here sweating.
I mean, what you're saying is kind of streamline that a little bit.
Yeah.
And put it into a straightforward sign of support to city council that says we need
I
to
think
do
so.
it. I want to save that for future reference. She's a good writer, but I think from city council's point of view, we need to keep it simple and straightforward and just say, some good things are happening. Let's keep moving down the road. So I will volunteer to draft. I can share it with you. We can.
Just so you all know,
Unless somebody else wants to do it.
just to harp the sunshine laws, someone can draft something that's okay.
Okay.
You could talk to one person. You
Okay.
can't have a little group of folks
Okay.
doing a memo. That is absolutely big no-no.
Gotcha.
But if someone wants to draft something and bring it, or, yeah,
Would anyone like to work with me on doing a draft?
I
that's
will.
totally fine.
So Tracy and I can exchange emails and draft one, draft two, and then we could bring something to the next meeting. Or even you could hand it out before the meeting so people could read it, and
Yeah,
so that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll start the ball
and
and you
then,
can go back and forth with me.
sounds
And then,
Love it.
okay?
Yeah, that's great.
And there was a lot of homework assignment for this meeting, but I asked Mel at the last minute to send an article to you all on some pretty interesting stuff going on out in LA. I'm fascinated with green energy and all these innovative programs. There's a lot going on out there, and this company in that article is one example. They're using pyrolysis, and they are making biochar, but that's not their major objective. They're making synthetic gas and they're making hydrogen. And they're actually cleaning up the air in the LA area. So I just ask you to read the article. I think this group should perhaps be a little bolder. And why can't Englewood do that? Why can't Englewood write a grant? Why can't Englewood put solar panels over by the sewage treatment plant? I hope we could get into the habit of making those kinds of suggestions. That website, if you read that article, you can go in and give your email. I can't represent Englewood, but if this is who I am, I want more information. How could we pursue this? I would love somebody like Mel to officially represent Englewood. But how do you light the fuse? How do you get it started? And I'm thinking our group, we care about this stuff. So please read the article just as a point of reference and think about what's to stop us from recommending solar panels over at the sewage treatment plant or something concrete methodology that's going to clean up our air. So that's all I had to say about that. Any thoughts or questions or other, but I'm reading these articles all the time and I love it.
Well, I think we have to be more aggressive if we're gonna reach targets like, 62.5% by 2030.
And their presentation, they told us, we are not self-sufficient. We still have to buy electricity to fund or to make that sewage treatment plant work. So, okay, put some solar panels up and make your own 30% of electricity. There's money out there to do that. I mean, the IRA, Biden's plan, there's grant money and all kinds of stuff. So again, I'd like to respectfully push city council or encourage them to maybe think outside the box and get a little more innovative. We don't have time on this climate change. Good Lord, I mean, look at the numbers. We can't study this for the next 20 years.
Right.
So anyways, I'll shut up.
No.
But that's what I hope we could do.
I think we should advocate for the city to get a grant writer.
Yeah.
Full circle.
I second this.
Okay, any other thoughts or questions? All right, I'll let everybody go home now. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
If anybody wants compost flyers,
Shirley, if I met
if you have neighbors, hand them out.
Yeah.
I would love the help with just,
Yep.
getting more and more people to.
Oh, Matthew said, before we end, just a reminder that the Arbor Day tree sale begins this Sunday.
That's a good
Order
reminder.
your trees online.
Good plug.
Absolutely.
All right, gang.
Wow.